Hey, it's me again, and today I'm going to be showing you some games in which I did really cool checkmates. So, let's see the games. The first one I played is white against a 2047 rated player. So, let's jump into the game. I started with knight f3 and we had a very standard opening. This is one of the variations that I most dislike against white because black gets a very solid position and it's just so tough. But my opponent played the King's Indian defense, so it's a weird sort of opening. It's this versus King's Indian defense versus this. We had a very standard opening until my opponent blundered with e5. So I took the pawn, and he realized that if he takes, I just take his queen and then take the pawn, and I'll be up a pawn. So he went knight g4 for a sacrifice, but he didn't realize if I can take this, and if he takes with the queen, I just damage the structure, and if he takes with the pawn, I still damage the structure, and I can also go knight b5, completely winning the pawn. So he went bishop f5 and gave up the pawn again, and then I went bishop f4. Now he could have taken my pawn. I blundered it, but instead he went here and I offered him a trade of queens. He declined it, and I just went e3, solidifying my position. And here's where I blundered. So I thought I can go knight b5, knight d5, attacking his queen and the bishop, and I'll win a bishop. But I just, for some reason, forgot that the queen can just take and then I'll lose an exchange. I'm still better because of the pawns that I have, but let's see what happens. So he goes rook a8. I go bishop h3, attacking the knight. He goes f5. Good move, defending the knight and also removing the pin. And then go knight d4. Now, my idea wasn't that it wasn't to lose the pawn, but it was to try to get this pawn or try to get knight f6 check, which wins the rook by taking this knight. But this is why bishops are so good. They guard the pawn and they also stop the f6 square from getting checked by the knight. So I went bishop h3. I was desperate for knight f6, and I thought he's gonna take like this, and then I'll have that and that, and it'll be a good position. And then he just took with the knight, and there's absolutely nothing. This can be stopped by this simple bishop d4 back. I mean, this is very irritating. This bishop guards that and that. So I went rook a2 to stop my opponent from taking the pawn, and he eventually did get the pawn. Now here's where I missed another thing. I could have just taken that and then go knight e7 check, and that would have been a fork. I did take the rooks, but I didn't play knight e7 check. Now he got his king and I also got my king, and we just had an endgame, and he attacked my rook and I took the pawn. Now it's actually a knight for a rook. It's no pawns are a difference. So he had this 3-on-2 majority on the king side, and I had a 2-on-1 majority on the queen side. So it seems like black's just gonna win. I mean, he's gonna go f4. He's gonna get his bishop. I mean, this bishop's gonna destroy everything. But somehow he ends up nearly losing this pawn and just loses this pawn. But still, I mean, how can anything wrong happen from here? This is such a good position. I give him a bunch of checks hoping for a draw. He just takes the pawn and gives up another pawn, and then it's just, where did the black pawns go? It just vanished, it looked like. Now I have a knight and a pawn for a rook, and this is, I'm pretty sure, a draw, even though the computer doesn't show it. The computer thinks black's winning, but I'm pretty sure it's a draw. And after bishop e5, he completely blunders it, and now it's a draw. So I got knight f3 fork, but he has rook g3, and then get my king up to e4, and I just go b4, b5. Apparently I missed a fork again, and then I just go bishop d. We'll see that in a moment. Okay, here is where a moment where I thought, oh my god, bishop e5 will win my knight. If I go king c3, bishop e5 will win my knight. But actually it doesn't. I realized this a little while later. I went king e3 when he played bishop for check. Here's where I thought, if I do this, it's just gonna be a bad position. I know the computer says it's a draw, but I thought it would be a bad position. So I went here, realizing that bishop e5, I can just go bishop d5, and this is like white cannot lose from here. There's like absolutely no way. White just goes and puts the knight here and there, and there's absolutely no way white can lose. So black plays king e7. I play knight c6 check. I don't take the bishop because I don't want to trade right now. And we have the check, and he goes to guard the pawn. Then he goes and blunders his bishop. I missed this as well, and I go king c2. But then a move later, I was like, wait a minute, he just blundered his bishop. Now you would have thought that, I mean, it's little winning, but it could be a draw easily. But I thought that it's gonna take some moves, why it's gonna make a queen and then checkmate. And there comes a6. So a6, if I take the pawn and the rook takes, it's actually a winning position for white, even though, but it will be very complicated because white cannot lose this pawn, else it would be a draw. So um, I did not take it, but I went knight d7 check. Now, would you believe it if I say, then the next move white checkmates black? You wouldn't, right? Believe me, he went king a7 and blundered d6 mate. This is one of the coolest mates that I've ever seen. The bishop blocks the light squares, the knight the dark square, and the pawn just checkmates the king. This was, by the way, completely unintentional. I was like, oh my god, I can make a queen, and I push the pawn, and it just happened to be checkmate. This was a very cool checkmate. Okay, let's go to the next game. This game is a game that I played against a 1968 rated player. He started with d4, and these days have a change of heart. So I don't play d6 against d4, but rather knight f6 and c5. So we had this position, and I went b5, the Benko gambit. This is the usual things that I play, and I'm not gonna bore you with the details. This is just normal opening stuff. He gives up the right to castle, but white's still much better because of the extra pawn, and we have a very normal position. This is all theory to get the knight to e5, all theory. Now here I play queen b6 and he goes rook b1. Now this is where I realize that I can take the knight, and because this is pinched, so I excitedly take the knight, thinking that I'm gonna win this, but he just takes it the queen. Now I go knight e5, trying to get rid of the queen from guarding the knight, and he goes queen e3, and I was like, knight c5, please just move the queen away, I just want to take your knight, please. And he just goes queen e2, and here's where I made a mistake. I thought he's attacking my knight, so if I just take his knight, he's gonna take my knight, and then we'll have nothing, just a boring endgame. But what I missed is what I missed is that if I take this and the queen takes, I can just take the rook. I mean, there's nothing wrong in that. I just missed the fact that I can take the rook. So I went instead to play queen b3 and guard my queen. But now it was too late, and he saw the threat and played bishop f4. I had a chance to take the knight and win a pawn like this, but then it's rook c1 and I just lose my knight. So I took this pawn and I pressurized this knight. Now white to play and win, and there's like only one move to win. That's this absurd knight d1. I'm gonna show it to you from white's perspective. I mean, come on, no one will probably play knight d1. I mean, isn't it more tempting to do what my opponent did by taking the knight, or maybe even, I don't know, something like knight b5 or something? I mean, it's like much better than this. Oh, sorry, this. Anyway, my opponent just took the knight and I took this, and now we have a draw. But it's same colored bishops, so the endgame is not necessarily drawn. So he gets the rook here, and it guard the pawn, and then I take this pawn. But it's a losing move because of this absurd move. Rook take. He didn't play that, but rook takes e7. So why is this losing? Well, if I take the rook, as you can see, okay, sorry, you can't see. If I take the rook, it's plus 7.1 for white, because white can play this check, and if I block with the bishop, it's just bishop h3. Lucky for black, it's not mate, but I can go queen g2, but I mean, I'll just lose the queen. This did not happen, unfortunately, or fortunately for me, depending on whose perspective. And he goes queen b5, attacking my rook, and I check him and do this. Now here's where I play the move rook f8, getting out of the way. But I had this, sorry, during the game, I had this sudden idea as well. You can see I have 1 minute 52 seconds and now I have 1 minute 45 because I really considered the move bishop to d4 and giving up the rook. I really thought about this, but I was like, I'll give up the rook, but I'll have this pressure. So I didn't do this, but uh, I after the game I just decided to check what happens if I did go bishop d4, and it's just mate. It's mate in 5. I'm not joking. You can see the eval bar fully white. There's no way for black to win. It's queen takes rook, as you know, first move. Now try to find the move that continues the attack. You can pause the video and check. Okay, so now the move is queen f8. This is a brilliant move because it lures the king into this bishop check, and once the bishop check happens, there's no way black can survive. There are three legal moves that black can do. One is to block with the bishop, but that just hangs mate. The other is to go king g8, but that also hangs mate. The third looks like black may be able to escape, but no. The rook checks, and the other rook comes, and these only pieces of white deliver the final blow. Wow, what a checkmate would that have been! But instead, I played rook f8. He took the pawn, and I played bishop d4. This is just losing for white because of all the pressure that I have. He plays queen f1, just guarding everything. I go g5. Now the idea of g5 is to deflect the bishop from this pawn so that I can go queen takes g3 check. Just to show that my opponent that I know this spin and all that. I just wanted to do that. So my opponent took the pawn and I got it, and by chance I even got the bishop. So I was attacking this rook and he moved the rook away. Now I went queen h4 attacking this pawn. Now my opponent played queen g2 check and then just blundered mate in 3. Like again for the previous mate, the first move is obvious, rook h3. But can you find the second continuation? Now of course you can go bishop takes f2 check, and then if the queen takes, you can win the queen, or you can even checkmate. And if the king goes here, it's just a complicated sort of checkmate that you can do. But instead there's even a better move, rook h1. Oh my god, I found this move in the game because once the queen takes, I can play queen takes pawn, and that's checkmate. Wow, what a checkmate is this. Okay, I'll move on to the final game now. So this is the game. So here's the game, and let's see this. So I started with knight f3 as usual. My opponent played d5, and we had the falling position. I was expecting knight c6, but my opponent just completely stunned me with h5. This is played before lots of times in the chess. So I continued with normal things like d4, and my opponent just straight up went to h4, completely giving this pawn. It kind of makes sense because my opponent wants to go rook h4 and this sacrifice, but it just doesn't work always. So I played c4 and we had this position as usual. If you haven't seen my video, you should probably see it about knight f3. This is the position, and I accidentally mess up by allowing my opponent to prevent me from castling. So this happens, and then we have a normal sort of game. I win this pawn. Now I'm up a pawn and I'm up 2 pawns, but I fall into my opponent's deadly trap of winning the knight. Now lucky for me, this is actually not exactly winning a knight because I can get back the bishop. So he then plays long castles check, of course, the famous move, and then I go king c2. He checks me again, and then I put my king all the way to a3. This is a safe place for the king. Then I can develop my bishop, get my rook in, and have a nice position. I put my rook on f5, and then on a5 trying to attack this pawn. He went king b8, a usual move. I played bishop f4 check, and he played king b7. Now remember, I'm up 2 pawns, but not only that, my position is just so much more better than my opponent's, whose rook is doing nothing. This rook is also kind of passive, can't enter the position. So he offered me a trade of rooks, a good decision actually, and I played check because I didn't want to trade. But then I realized I was forced to do it due to the fact that both my rooks were being attacked. So I took one of his rooks and then put my rook on e5. He went knight f6, and I played knight f5 trying to get my knight into the position. and we had this position where he attacked my knight. I went back and I got this check. Now this is a position where I can get a discovery check, but even better, I can just go bishop d2 check, and he puts his king on b5, and I played a knight takes e6 check. Now would you believe me again if I tell you that the game ends in the next move? Really, you won't, right? So it's this is how the game ends: king c4 and this beautiful checkmate b3. The rook cuts off the entire rank, the bishop cuts off the diagonal, the knight cuts off the d4 square, the pawn cuts off the d3 square, and this pawn guards this pawn, and it's just such a beautiful mate. I couldn't believe it when it happened. It was a casual game, but still, it was surely an entertaining game. Hope you like this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more such videos. Bye.